So
Yeah,
thanks, Matt.
thank you so much, Brian. And thank you for letting me close out this conference with a bang. Certainly been a cool conference. Great to have everyone, online, even though we're not in person. Cool to see everyone still around. Thank you for coming to my talk. I'm going to be talking about how my disabilities make me a better developer. Um, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Let me just dive right into this. Okay, so before I do though, just really quick, I work at Bounteous, like Brian mentioned. I've been here for about 3 years. I love this company. On the right, you can see some of our clients: Domino's Pizza, Centura Health, Wilson Sporting Goods. Um, Everyone at my company is smart. Everyone at my company works hard, and everyone at my company supports my disability. It's a really great place to work, and I have really great coworkers, really great management. So if you're looking for a Drupal position, definitely keep Bounteous in mind in the future. So what is this talk? Um, Obviously, I struggled a lot, figuring out what to write for this talk, what to present, what to talk about. Um, I went back and forth on this a million times, adjusting slides, and I've even been adjusting things today as I figure out what I really want to say. But first and foremost, this talk is about my experience with a disability. It's about the things that I go through on a daily basis, and the different lessons that I've learned from living with a disability. This is not a call for pity. I don't need you to treat me any differently because of this. I don't need empathy or pity. If I need help, I will ask for help. So just something to keep in mind through this. There's a really great quote that came about in the 90s during the Americans with Disabilities Act that people with disabilities started fighting for civil rights, and they organized around this quote that is, "Nothing about us without us." And what this says is that when decisions are being made about people with disabilities, or when things are being done that impact our lives, we need to be in the room to talk about the things that we need. So this talk is my way of putting myself in the room, making myself be known, making it be known the different things that I deal with, and just raising some awareness about um, the lives of people with disabilities. People usually don't have a lot of perspective into this kind of thing, so it's an interesting thing to share. As I mentioned, this is a very emotional and personal talk. I struggled a lot with trying to figure out what to say, and this is scary for me because as a person with a disability, I understand that society may look at me differently. People in the future, uh, or people in general that, if I'm trying to find a job, if, someone's trying to get information about me, they will see this talk. And, this is, what I'm trying to say is that, it's a difficult talk to give, and that there are going to be consequences for me in the future for sharing this part of my life with you all. So I'm going to do my best to be honest and forthright about all this. At a high level, this is just how I survive day-to-day life and the different lessons that I've learned from having a disability. So I am Matthew Ramirez. I am a senior web developer at Bounteous. You can email me, matthewramirez@bounteous.com or at gmail.com. Find me on the Twitters at Crash. I am a computer science major. I went to University of Illinois Chicago. I also minored in gender studies. Something people don't know a lot, or people might not know about me. I have always been very social justice oriented, very active with um, women's rights groups and disability rights groups and animal rights groups throughout my life. So um, disability equality is something that's very important to me. It's something I've, put a lot of thought into throughout my life. Um, from a tech perspective, I started doing Drupal in 2012 during college. Some of the first Drupal websites I built were for the LGBTQ group at UIC, and a couple of the groups that I was a part of. I enjoy performance optimizations and long-running queries on the beach a lot. Um, Anytime you have a technical problem that involves complex systems or performance problems or integrations or any of that fun stuff, definitely the guy you want to call. Um, I'm also very athletic. I'm a golfer. I play in golf tournaments. I play golf pretty much every weekend. I'm an athlete. I grew up playing soccer, camping. I was at Boy Scouts. I was an outdoorsman, and I love just being a part of nature. I love being outside of my house. So this COVID time is not necessarily very fun, but I'm excited for it to end so that I can get back outside. I got the name Crash. So uh, I got the name Crash because of the number of times I crashed my bike as a kid. When I was in high school, I used to bike to school every day. And unfortunately, with my disability, uh, balance and coordination are slightly affected. So that equals more bike crashes. I thought crash with an H wasn't cool enough though, because I was an angsty high school kid, so I spelled it with an X. So that's how you can find me in the future. Um, I'm funny, I'm good looking. One of those things is true. I'll let you figure out which one. Might be both, but you guys can decide and let me know after the talk. I'm also disabled. Um, and this is an interesting thing that I struggle with a lot, because I am a well-respected senior developer at a company. I'm an outdoorsman. I'm an athlete. I'm a golfer. Does that mean that I'm not disabled if I can do more than what most people can? Um, I mean, what even is disability, right? So, from a medical perspective, disability is a physical or mental condition that limits a person's movements, senses, or activities. So we have this medical view of disability, but within disability, social justice, there's also the societal view of disability, which is this idea that, you know, in myself inherently, like, I do not have a disability. What disables me is the fact that society, it becomes inaccessible for me. So there's a lot of different views on what disability is. It affects everyone differently, and it's extremely complicated. So just wanted to share a couple of videos here of me. So on the left here is me playing golf. I play golf about once a week, um, and I've been playing since I was a kid. When I was in high school, I tried out for my golf team, and I was one of a couple of people that didn't make the team. And I found out about a week later that, everyone on the golf team was calling me the crippled kid, that didn't make the team. So I quit golfing, but I picked it up again a couple of years ago. This is a video from just about a month ago. I've, since picking up golf again, I've just started working hard at getting better at overcoming some of the challenges that I have to face with it, which I'll be talking about shortly. But, it's a good example of how I'm in this weird dichotomy where, I'm physically disabled, but I can golf better than a lot of people out there. Here's a video of me bowling. This was also about a month ago. I had my best friend record me in it because I kept throwing gutter balls, and I wasn't really able to throw it down the lane. Of course, I was like, "Hey, can you record me?" And I throw it perfectly, right? So this is another good example of, I have these physical limitations, and sometimes they're really difficult for me to overcome. But there are cases like this where I tend to work at the problem until I figure out how to overcome it. So, recording myself, working with friends, talking to friends about what I might be doing wrong or how I can improve my skills. Just some of the work I have to put in on a daily basis. So, am I disabled? Well, medically, yes. So I have what's called cerebral palsy, short for CP for short, and CP refers to a broad group of medical disabilities that typically affect a person's ability to move, maintain balance, and a whole variety of things. This list here is how CP specifically affects me. So there are different medical names for the different symptoms that I have. I don't know if you call them symptoms, but just the different difficulties I have. So for spastic hemiplegia, mostly the right side of my body is affected by this. The left side is affected as well, but part of this is I have super toned muscles. So that means that I don't have to work out at all and I get really jacked. Um, oh wait, no, I'm sorry. So super toned muscles means that my muscles are in a constant state of contraction. So I found a good example of this today when I was thinking through this. So if you put your arms down by your sides and clench your hands really hard, you can feel your muscles tense up a little bit, right? When I get nervous or there are certain conditions that trigger this, my muscles will tense up like that, and I won't be able to relax them. So that also kind of falls into this idea of dystonia, where I have involuntary muscle contraction. So, for example, if I hold my right hand here and I rest it on the table, my fingers start twitching. That's not, that's not me doing that. That's just involuntary movement. So again, mostly right side of the body. And I also have difficulty with speaking and swallowing. I never knew that cerebral palsy affected swallowing until a few months ago, and I was like, oh, that explains why I'll randomly choke on things. So, um, it affects me in a lot of different ways. Some ways I don't even know of yet. I'm always finding new things that are that give me limitations or kind of make me have to think through problems slightly differently. I also have ataxia, which affects my balance and coordination. So again, with the biking, probably wasn't the best idea to be a huge biker, but I bike to school every day anyway. Even in the middle of winter when all the streets were frozen. It went about as well as you can imagine. Yeah, good times. Uh, Also, fine motor control is a really big one. So, for example, if I pick up a bottle cap here, I'll be talking about this shortly as well. It's difficult for me to grab onto that bottle cap in a way that doesn't hurt my hands, and that I'm able to, properly hold on to it. So, for all intents and purposes, yes, like I am disabled. And sometimes I'm disabled, sometimes I'm not disabled. Sometimes I'm able to do things in a normal way where I don't have to have specific accommodations. Sometimes I need to ask people for help. Sometimes um, it's the result of people around me that cause me to be disabled. It's a very, very complicated thing, and it's a very situational thing. But I'm going to talk through just a couple examples of how my disability affects me in the day-to-day life, and some of the ways I figured out how to work through it. So this is me and my dad on my porch. We're sitting on a swing that we just built together. My dad was a pipe fitter for a long time when I was a kid, and he's since moved into a different line of work. But I grew up with him, and he had every single tool I could ever need. So I grew up around working with my hands. He would show me how to fix things like toilets and electrical switches and outlets, and anything in the house that would break. He would show me how to fix it and teach me how to use the different tools um, that are available for me to use in different situations. So a good example of this is whenever I want to hang a picture, say, um, grabbing onto that nail is extremely difficult for me. I'm not able to grab the nail within my with between my pointer and thumb. Um, the most comfortable way I can grab this nail is through how it's shown in the picture here. A big problem with that obviously is that suddenly my fingers are in the way. Um, when I'm swinging a hammer, again, I don't have a lot of coordination. So if I'm trying to nail something that small and my hand is in the way, I'm gonna hit my fingers. And I really like my fingers, so I try to avoid that when I can. So yeah, I can ask my dad for help. I can ask a friend for help. There's people that that I can lean on for help with this, but that's no I'm not always going to have someone around to help me. And especially when it's something as simple as nailing a picture to a wall. I'm not going to want to make my friend drive across the city so that he can hang a single photo, right? So I look at a problem like this and I say, how can I work through this? What are my options that would make it possible for me to nail something into a wall without having to call a friend, without having to ask for help? Um, and again, growing up around tools as a kid, I realized that I have a perfect tool for this. So this is just a pair of needle nose pliers. I'm able to grab onto the nail with just the tip, and then the way that the pliers are structured, I'm able to grab onto the handle without worrying about my spasticity, without worrying about my hands cramping and being in pain, without worrying about the constriction that happens with my body when I try to do these fine motor controls. Um, so this is a good example of how things can feel impossible sometimes. I look at nailing something to a wall, or even using a screwdriver to pull out an electrical switch or something. That becomes really difficult for me, and it can take me 4 or 5 times longer to do something as simple as nailing something to a wall. If I were to do this without the pliers, I would probably grab the nail in my fingertips and I'd probably drop it about 4 or 5 times. And then, like I said, I would hit my fingers as well. One of the things I used to do as a kid is I would try and just push the nail into the wall a little bit so it wouldn't fall, and then continue to hammer that way. But you know, this is across my entire life. There are things that just feel impossible, and that definitely comes up with code as well. I'll be faced with some project or some task on a project that it feels impossible. Then it might not feel like there's a solution for it. It might just be dreaming. It might take you 4 or 5 times the amount of time you estimated. But once you have the right tools and you really understand the problem, it's not too difficult to find a way to work through it and work past that. So that's a good example of some of the things I face. Another one is tying my shoes. So this is a super basic task, and it requires a lot of perseverance from me. So I'm going to play you a quick video of how I tie my shoes. I recorded this a couple of days ago. It's 40 seconds long. So when I was, trying to figure out what to talk about for this, I looked up, how long should it take you to tie your shoes? And then, I'd be interested to see like how long it takes people to tie their shoes, because when I searched this, most of the videos were either, how to tie your shoes in under 2 seconds, or how, videos designed specifically for kids on uh, how to tie your shoes. And I even had a good laugh because one of the videos was of a kid explaining how to tie his own shoes. And he was able to tie his shoes faster than I was able to. So, if we think about how this might affect me, a good example is I have a very vivid memory of childhood. I was at Six Flags, and my shoe came untied. At Six Flags, it's busy. It's a amusement park, so there's people running everywhere. I'm trying to stay up with my group. I believe I tried to tie my shoes about 3 times, and they would come untied constantly. So I'd have to stop and wait, stop, tie my shoes, and then catch up with my group. Eventually, I asked my friend for help, and I said, "Hey, man, like I need you to tie my shoes." And he was like, "Yeah, no problem." He helped me without question. Um, and it's just this very vivid memory of me standing in the middle of Six Flags with my best friend tying my shoes. And it's a difficult thing to deal with, because you feel like you're the center of attention. You feel like everyone's watching you, even though it's not really the reality of it. It makes you very self-conscious to ask for help. But at the same time, if I were to try to tie this shoe myself in the middle of Six Flags, I get nervous because I feel like people are watching me. And when I get nervous, my body tenses up, and it'll take me 5 times longer to do it in that case. But if I ask for help, all I have to do is kind of suck it up for a minute, understand that sometimes I just need a little bit more help, and my friends help me with no problem. So even though life requires that perseverance, with the right help, I'm able to keep up. I don't have to worry about falling behind because people help me. Uh, a third and final example of kind of what some of the things I go through. So I just moved out to Denver. I live on my own as a person with a disability, which is something that it's relatively rare for people with physical disabilities. So to live alone, a lot of times people need you know extra care, different types of help for basic things around the house. Um, and I just moved to Denver, and I realized that I'm far away from my family now. I'm far away from my support system. I need to start taking care of, making sure that I can survive alone, making sure that I can take care of basic tasks in my life that might come up. So a good example of this was I got my first flat tire, and this was about a month ago. On my way back from a golf show, of course, uh, and it wasn't the most ideal situation. I was on one of the highways over 294 in the West Loop, but I had a friend with me, and he was he knew how to change tires. He was able to talk me through it and kind of point out the things that I did incorrectly. So I'm glad that he was there and able to give me some help with this. But I also wanted to do this on my own so that I can prove that when I get to Denver, like I don't need to worry about this type of thing because I know I can take care of it myself. Uh, while this was happening, a man came up to us and offered to help us. Um, my assumption was that this man was either homeless or had some type of psychological issues, combination of the both. But we tried to explain to him that, hey, I want to do this on my own. Like I need to learn how to do this. Um, I I appreciate your offer for help, but we're okay. There's two of us that are taking this on. He did the opposite of help us. So instead of saying okay and moving on, what he decided to do was get upset with us and call us racist for not allowing him to help us. And then he sat down next to us while I was changing the tire and proceeded to heckle me throughout the entire process. So he would say things to me like, hey, buddy, you look really weird. Are you sure you're okay? You look really tired. You need someone to help you, like that kind of, and just kind of, mentioning about how weird I looked, about how I probably needed help. Um, and it was extremely difficult, but my options were either confront this guy, start a fight, maybe I don't even know, like what he's going through in his life, um or I can just accept it and just do what I need to do. So that's what I did. I don't want to start a fight with anyone. I doubt I can handle that myself. I just kept moving and I changed my tire. I got it done myself. My friend helped me out with some of the more manual labor that was repetitive, like jacking up the car. But we were able to fix the tire. And I did it while someone was heckling me the whole time. And that's just more proof that I'm going to be okay. Like, I'm able to live independently. And the world is going to throw really annoying things at me, but I'm still going to be able to work through them and it's going to be okay. Um, I am louder than a bomb. So, Louder Than a Bomb is a youth poetry festival in Chicago. They have 500 poets over 5 weeks. It's mostly Chicago public schools, a lot of underrepresented communities. Basically everyone from all over Chicago comes to the same place and shares their poetry. And I when I decided to join this, the coach for the team talked to me and she talked to all of us and she asked us, what's the thing that you hate the most about your body? And I remember telling her, like, I hate how I smile. Like sometimes when I smile, that spasticity kicks in, and I look really weird or I look strange. I don't like my smile. And she looked at me and she's like, "What about your disability? Like you have this whole physical disability that What about that?" And I realized that I had never even really thought about that. My disability is just something I accept and I live with. It's not my identity. It's something I work past. Um, but I decided to write about my disability, and I performed this poem in front of thousands and thousands of people. And just like this, it was people that had never really been introduced to disability or hadn't really thought about how disability affects people. So I am going to perform a poem for you right now. It's slightly different than the one I originally did for Louder Than a Bomb, but this is a photo of me when I was on stage. Um, very well received poetry, but hopefully this will just shed or share a little bit of more insight on some of the things I deal with my disability. And some rough language in here, so apologies. If it makes you uncomfortable, feel free to leave or tune out. Ruptured uterus. The worst thing a doctor can tell an expecting mother. Disabled. The worst thing the doctor could have called her child. Cripple. A word that has tortured me ever since. A word that tells me I exist somewhere between normal and trash. A waste of space. This idea sent me into spirals, roller coasters of depression and time bombs. I bury them in liquor bottles and silent nights, hoping I don't have to explain my existence, hoping I don't have to be reminded of what could have been. I put my heart on my sleeve and my guts on the stage, wrote words I've feared for all my life in hopes that you would hear me. And I realized that the people that mattered had never stopped listening. I was just bottled too tight to understand or be understood. I was buried by things like the word cripple, every social expectation, another nail in the coffin. I am supposed to be strong. I am supposed to be invincible. I am stuck in limbo, a place I put myself through years of torture, trying to conform, trying to be worth something. I hold tally marks on my wrists of the days I've been alive, the days I've been stuck in a broken body that holds a crystal mind captive. I am a cripple, a deformed, defective, debilitated cripple. I called myself these things before anyone else had a chance to. And I am reminded daily of how true they are when innocent children and guilty adults point crooked fingers back at an empty conscience. When all I can do is laugh along when my body spasms as I am startled. When anonymous gamers ask me daily how drunk I am. They tell me I should get checked out if I argue I am sober. When bouncers at nightclubs turn me away or tell me to drink water because I look too intoxicated. When I am forced into the shame of asking for a seat on the train because my body gets too tired to stand. At least I can stand. I am not sitting at home hidden behind daydreams of perfection out of the public's eye. I am not a burden to the state. I refuse to be institutionalized or sterilized. I refuse to be restricted or restrained. I will not let an inaccessible world tell me what I am capable of. I am a cripple. I am intelligent. I am a human being. I deserve to be treated with respect. But I don't know how to be real. I don't know how to be disabled. The universe forgot to give me a manual. It just decided I was special, sometimes even beautiful, and somehow it became my struggle to just exist. So that last point, there is no man page on disability, and I think this is a big part of where struggles come from, is that how do I know what I'm allowed to ask help for? How do I know what I can and can't do? Is my experience valid? If I'm able to be a physical athlete and play golf, am I allowed to ask for a seat on the train? Right? It's a very complicated issue, but throughout my life, I've proved that I can do anything. I can overcome any obstacle. Um, but this is where things get dangerous because I can't do everything. I like to think that I can. I like to, push myself to to keep up with people. I've been, you know, I've been lucky to have friends that can help me when I start to fall behind. But the truth is, I can't always keep up. Um, so I personally fight depression every day. Um, a lot of it comes from being disabled. You know, being disabled really, really sucks. And I remember I got into a fight with someone about this who was making fun of me. And I told them, you know, I hope that you never get a disability because even though you're giving me so much crap for this, you know, I wouldn't wish it on you. Um, and then another memory is uh, this quote I had from childhood. So I must have been in like fourth grade, and you know the quote came from some art studio that I did, where I just said, you know, when people make fun of me, I can't concentrate, and you know that's kind of, I think it's a very early indicator of some of the fights I would have to fight with, you know, my disability and with depression. The world is cruel and unfair, and you know the things I deal with affect me as a human and make it difficult for me to work and difficult for me to concentrate on things, especially when you know I'm directly confronted with a struggle related to my disability. You know, sometimes I need to escape my reality. I'm stuck in this body, and you know, there are times where my depression is more debilitating than my cerebral palsy is, which I think is a, you know, it's an interesting thought that you know I can overcome anything related to my physical disability, but when it comes to depression, you know, there's no, it's not something that I can just work hard on and overcome. It's something that you know you have to treat very differently, um, with respect to your health. So September 2018, I had one of my favorite aunts commit suicide, um, and you know it's such a simple act, but it changed my whole world and it changed the whole world of my family. Um, you know, it's something I think about a lot. You know, I think about like what would happen to others if I were gone. And this is the depression talking, right? This is the kind of thing that I have to deal with depression and work through. And you know, and I think the final alarming thing about this whole process was that I felt jealous of her. I felt jealous that you know, she didn't have to live through the pain of life anymore, which was a difficult thing for me to even say to myself. So in June 2019, you know, a lot of this was still happening. I was still processing this. I was working very hard at work. Um, you know, there were a few other things in my personal life that were piled on, and I just decided that you know I couldn't handle it anymore, and I needed help. So I went to a hostel and I said, hey, like I need to find some group therapy. I need to find someone else to talk to because I'm having a really difficult time um, dealing with this stuff. And their response to that was to commit me to a psychiatric unit. Um, I was in there for a week. Uh, you know, it was one of the worst times of my life. And I really felt like I was captive. And I think it's interesting to juxtapose this photo because this photo was taken, you know, about a week before this happened. You know, this is, I'm happy, right? I'm I'm living my life. I'm overcoming my disability. I'm doing well at work, but you know, it's not always the case on the inside. And you know, getting committed to a psychiatric unit was a wake up call. You know, it told me that I need to take care of myself better, and you know, I need to start working on my mental health just as much as my physical health, and work, you know, be aware of my my, depression as a disability, just as I am aware of my cerebral palsy as a disability. So, overall, like, I'm really glad it happened. It was a very difficult experience, but, I'm glad it happened because it really was a wake up call. It taught me that I need to take this seriously. So now I'm moving forward. Um, you know, I work hard every day to understand what I'm feeling, just like I work hard every day to think about how I can work with my disability and being aware of my mental health as well as my physical health. Um, you know, oh, sorry, yeah, sorry, I missed that. So, I work hard every day to understand what I'm feeling. I just try to be very aware of my emotional health. I try to be very aware of my physical health. And it's something that I just have to continue to work at day after day. Um, and just like there's no man page on, my disability, there's no man page on depression. Depression affects everyone differently, just like my, disability affects everyone differently. And you have to think, is my experience valid? Am I allowed to help? And um, there's a few lessons that I've really taken from all these events, especially within the last year and growing up with a disability. That I think they're helpful lessons to share because there's things that you might not normally come across if you're not struggling on a day-to-day basis, or if you're not facing these things. um I'm facing things that people probably never think about. The first thing is that it doesn't get easier. I think that there's a lot of discussion, especially in the mental health community, as a kid, where they say, it'll get easier as you mature. The problems won't be as difficult, which is true to some extent. But I would argue that, the things I deal with don't get easier. I just find ways to manage them. And I think having that perspective that things are going to be difficult and that's okay because I'll find ways to get through them, has really been helpful for me. I can't be perfect. I think I was trying to be perfect. I was trying to act like my disability didn't exist. I was trying to, be a normal person that didn't need help, that wasn't a burden on society. But that's not reality. The reality is that I'm not perfect. And, I just have to be okay with that. And this really applies to everyone, I think. Um, every obstacle is a chance to learn is a really, really big one for me. So every single time I'm faced with a challenge I need to overcome, every time I'm in physical pain because of the way my body is moving, it's a chance for me to learn and grow. And, every single thing teaches me something new about myself and teaches me some way to better take care of myself. But really, the most important thing I've learned is how to ask for help, and this especially in the last few months of trying to be more aware of like my struggles, trying to be more aware of the pain I'm in. It's very important to ask for help because doing these things alone is extremely difficult. And then, it's important to seek balance. I think that especially when we get wrapped up in work, we're fighting deadlines. We're trying to make sure the client is happy. We're working, 20-hour days to make sure that the project finishes on time. But, you have to step back and ask yourself, are you taking care of yourself? Are you living your life in an imbalanced way, or maybe you're working too hard, you're stressing yourself out? Sometimes it's good to just take a step back and evaluate the way that you're feeling about something, and work on finding a more centered and balanced position for it. So I want to talk briefly about support systems. Like I mentioned, I just moved to Denver from Chicago. Uh, I just got my stuff a few days ago, so I'm still unpacking, and you can imagine the chaos that my mind is in during all this. But um, I'm still trying to be honest with how I'm feeling about all this. And, there are things that are still difficult, even though I came out here to try and find a little bit of peace and to be closer to nature. Life is still going to be difficult. So what do I do when I'm not at home and I don't necessarily have the same support systems available to me? Um, the first thing is getting establishing a therapist out here. So I'm becoming more and more aware of how my emotions affect me. I'm working hard at acknowledging them and not just ignoring them and pushing through them. And therapy really helps for that. You can always find a therapist no matter where you are. Unfortunately, some of us are in better situations than others to be able to afford a therapist. But it's something that, I've been going to a therapist since I was in sixth grade, and it continues to help me grow, and it continues to help me understand, both the physical and psychological problems I face. Um, Another one is family and friends. Even though I'm so far away, even though I'm alone, I still have friends and family out in the world. There's still people I can talk with and connect to, even at times like this when I'm confined to my house. I have friends and family I can talk to, I can reach out to, and this DrupalCon is a good, or sorry, MidCamp is a good example of that, where we have this whole community of friends that where we genuinely care about each other, and you're here hearing my story, and I just know that we're both going to grow from this, and I'm going to grow from this. There's doctors in medicine. Sometimes your depression gets to a point where it's just unmanageable, and sometimes medicine is a good option for you. There's a lot of different routes you could take. There's a lot of different people that you can talk to that will sympathize with you, and it's a very complicated topic, and it's not something that you just have to solve on your own. And then myself, being a friend to myself, um making sure that I don't beat myself up when I'm not able to accomplish something, or something takes me 5 times longer than it should have. you know a big place to start with emotional happiness is to work on the internal part of yourself that might beat yourself up. And I think that's a really big thing with imposter syndrome in our field, is that we tend to feel like we don't belong, like we're all just kind of faking it, and somehow our code works. It's something that I think blinds us to the reality of what we're really doing, is that we're creating amazing things through computers, and sometimes you got to pat yourself on the back and just be happy with yourself, and work to understand like how you're feeling, to help yourself feel better. So running low on time here, but let me I'm just gonna wrap this up on the title. So how do my disabilities make me a better developer? Um, One point I would argue is that both cerebral palsy and depression force me to problem solve on a daily basis. Um, I think too, in software architecture we have katas, right? Kata is a assignment that you do with a group of people. It's not like a real project, but it's a way for you to practice software architecture. And for me, I'm forced to solve problems on a daily basis that relate to my health. And if I don't solve them, I am in physical pain. Um, so I think that doing those things on a daily basis, and trying to look at the problems I solve as problems that have solutions, just help me strengthen my development skills. having these disabilities has also taught me a lot of compassion and patience. Not everyone in the software world is a rock star that can fix complicated issues in 5 minutes. Some things take people longer, and that's okay. You know, it's important to help people through their problems and give them the support that they need, but do it in a way where they can learn and grow from it. So I think it's really helped me as, a senior level developer, just to learn how to better interact with people and and give them that compassion that, the work we do is hard and life is hard. Um, and last, of course, it gives me, my disabilities afford me a different perspective on life. Um, life is hard, and I have different solutions for things. I face different experiences that some people would never even know about. Um, it's a crazy life I live, but it also gives me a lot of different perspectives that people don't normally have, and it's important for us to share those perspectives. And I think this is the case for everyone. We all have difficulties that we go through. We all have problems that we go through. But it's important for us as humans to grow from those problems, and it behooves us to contribute that knowledge back to our society. So I mean, yeah, it's a very, very interesting, complicated topic that I've been thinking about this stuff my entire life. I don't obviously have all the answers. I don't know if I'm doing any of this correctly. This is just my opinion about, how I've lived my life, and I just wanted to share, you know, some insight into some of the struggles I face. But thank you all for listening to me ramble for a while. Obviously, with the COVID stuff and moving across country, I wasn't able to put as much work into this as I wanted to. But I'm really grateful for you all for hanging out and listening to me. Couple reminders, like Contrib Day is tomorrow. You can send me some feedback. I would really appreciate feedback on this, because this is a talk I would like to give more often. I would like to share it share my story with the community, and I would like to share something that people want to hear. So if you have any thoughts or perspectives on this stuff, don't hesitate to share them with me. Especially, you can send me a message on Slack or anonymously, and that'll be really helpful for me. So that's my talk. If you have, I'll take questions now and answer all the things. And Brian, if you guys want to help with the moderation, that'd be cool.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Matt. That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I don't see any questions quite yet in the chat, although definitely some positive feedback and some snaps for the poetry. Yeah, if anybody has questions, we do have a little bit of time. But if not, as Matt mentioned, oh, I might have a question.
This is Amy June. Hi, Matthew. I'm disappointed I didn't get to hang out and drink beer with you. That's my first comment.
Yeah.
Well, with all of you, sorry. But I just wanted to say that a couple of the points you made really hit home, especially about taking care of myself, because I'm a nurse by trade, and then I'm a community developer, so I'm building relationships and that kind of thing. And I really think, like, when you said, take care of yourself, I think it hits people. It's that really good reminder. So I want to thank you for iterating that a few times during your talk.
Yeah, and I mean, something I've learned about that is that you're not always going to be able to do that perfectly. It's important to take care of yourself, but it's also important not to beat yourself up if you can't do that. You know, sometimes you're gonna have to work 20-hour days to make a deadline. And that's okay, because you know you'll move on, and you just need to make sure that your happiness is in a place where you can, you know, keep being productive and keep working, and you know, just reach out if you need help.
Awesome. Yep, definitely more continued positive feedback in the Zoom. You know, as Matt mentioned, there's a feedback form on the session node. So it'd be great if folks could fill that out. Any other questions or comments? Maybe something else.
Oh no, yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, like I mentioned, feel free to message me in Slack. I know that this is it's a difficult topic, and you know, it's a complicated topic, and it's not always something that people want to talk about, you know, in public. So feel free to message me on Slack, and I'm happy to have a discussion with whoever.
Awesome. And I encourage everybody, feel free to unmute and give a real world clap if you want, or use the Zoom clap reaction. It's almost like we're really in the same place.